On this Friday night, the federal budget under the microscope. Parliament's fiscal watchdog says Mark Carney's economic plan is sustainable, but there's a catch.
The government definitely has limited room to maneuver at this point.
Will it be enough to pass Monday's confidence vote and avoid a Christmas election? Plus, the government's fast-tracked projects and their environmental footprint.
And the local communities are the ones that are really left dealing with the repercussions.
Ukraine hits back. Ukrainian missiles blow up a major Russian oil depot after another deadly night in Kyiv. And a daring escape from killer whales.
He is on our boat. You're good. Just stay, buddy.
The SEAL's survival story caught on camera.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Carney government's economic plan for Canada is under the microscope tonight. The Parliamentary Budget Office released its assessment of the Liberals' proposed spending plan, and it comes just ahead of Monday's confidence vote on the budget, which could trigger an election. Ottawa's financial watchdog said the government's fiscal targets are misleading and unrealistic, and that the ballooning deficit leaves little room to increase spending or cut taxes. But overall, the PBO also concluded that the government's finances are sustainable. And as David Akin explains, that assessment represents a dramatic U-turn.
Stupefying. Shocking.
That's the Parliamentary Budget Officer earlier this fall talking about the government's debt before the budget was tabled.
The current path we're on in terms of federal debt as a share of the economy is unsustainable.
But now that the budget has been tabled, the PBO's assessment has changed. Based on Finance Canada projections, the PBO wrote, current fiscal policy in Budget 2025 would be deemed sustainable over the long term. So what changed? In the budget, the government detailed how it would cut $60 billion in operating costs.
And that ends up being important because the $60 billion in cuts and the 40,000 layoffs, that's a key part of this government's budget.
Jason Jake says those cuts are critical if the government is to maintain its current debt-to-GDP ratio. And he did not, of course, have that information when he assessed the government's finances back in September.
We only included what the government had announced, not all the platform promises. And then also we didn't include all of the additional NATO spending in order to get to the 5% target, nor did we include the cuts.
Jake says the government needs to provide more details on those cuts, but the cuts help offset some increased spending, which the Prime Minister says is vital as the country's economy struggles with U.S. tariffs.
We're starting at home with generational investments. We're creating the right conditions to get big things built in Canada.
The PBO's comments in September made him a hero to the Conservative opposition. But now that the PBO has pronounced the government's fiscal path to be sustainable, well, expect Liberal MPs to hold up the PBO as their champion. Jeff.
All right, David, and the final confidence vote on this budget is set for Monday. It's a minority government, so how do the Liberals avoid losing and plunging this country into a Christmas election?
We don't yet know, Jeff, but let's walk through two possibilities. Here's the House of Commons. There are 170 Liberal MPs, but one of those is the Speaker, who normally does not vote. So the Liberals start the day with 169 votes. Now, the combined opposition has 173 votes. But if the Liberals can get any two opposition MPs to vote with them, then it's a tie, 171 votes each. And in the event of a tie, the Speaker would vote. And by tradition, the Speaker votes to sustain the status quo. So the Speaker would vote with the government, giving it the extra vote to pass the budget. Alternatively, any four opposition MPs can abstain or fail to show up for the vote, and in that case, it would be tied again at 169 each. And once again, the Speaker would cast the deciding vote on the government's side. So not a lot of room for error on either side, Jeff, and some potential high drama on Monday.
A nail-biter for our David Akin in Ottawa. Thanks, David. The reaction is pouring in to Mark Carney's growing list of proposed infrastructure projects. 6 more projects were added to the federal government's fast-track list yesterday, which the Prime Minister says will help establish Canada as an energy superpower. But those proposed plans are also facing fierce resistance, including from environmentalists. Jillian Piper reports.
Prime Minister Mark Carney watching his carbon footprint with a trek on public transit. Carney also promoting plans to build Canada's first high-speed railway, which Ottawa says could save 25 million tons in emissions.
We're fast-tracking high-speed rail spanning 1,000 kilometers from Toronto to Montreal and Quebec City.
Although high-speed rail has not officially made the major projects list so far, Ottawa has pledged to fast-track 11 other proposals, ranging from a hydro grid in Nunavut to graphite, copper and nickel mines and a nuclear power plant in Ontario.
8 out of the 11 projects that have been announced to date are firmly anchored in a vision of our future in the clean economies.
But the planned expansion of 2 liquefied natural gas facilities in BC is worrying some environmentalists.
It's actually just locking in a longer-term reliance on fossil fuels.
Ottawa says it is taking steps to reduce environmental harms.
Our energy and critical minerals projects are amongst the lowest carbon in the world.
But Hadrian Mertens-Kirkwood, who studies federal climate policy, says the Liberals are relying too much on investment tax credits and trying to entice the private sector to reduce emissions.
We're seeing backsliding in areas like electric vehicles, certainly on clean energy. So we need the federal government to be more involved. Trying to trust the private sector just isn't working.
In the federal budget, Ottawa also hinted at removing the oil and gas emissions cap, which could make it harder for Canada to meet its goal of being net zero by 2050.
It's probably a political concession to Alberta, which has been very resistant to the cap. But the bigger risk is that oil emissions continue to rise and will continue to rise, and that cap was going to serve a very important purpose.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith told reporters today that her proposal for a pipeline to northern BC is well underway, Jeff, and that it is her intention to put forward a pitch for it to be federally fast-tracked in the early spring.
Jillian Piper in Ottawa. Thank you, Jillian. Environmental concerns are also being raised in Atlantic Canada over New Brunswick's proposed Sisson mine. The project was just added to the Prime Minister's list to be fast-tracked. It's faced years of delays, and as Heidi Petracek reports, even the project's supporters remain skeptical.
A road and a rock pile are the only signs of where the Sisson mine will be, a project almost 2 decades old, yet to yield results.
What makes tungsten so unique is its unparalleled hardness.
This Northcliffe Resources video extols the benefits of its tungsten deposits here. In May, Northcliffe received $20 million in funding from the U.S. Department of Defense. The project now on Ottawa's list of those earmarked for possible fast-tracking.
Discussions were restarted when we formed government and identified this as an opportunity.
But not everyone wants it. The proposed site, about 60 kilometers northwest of Fredericton, past the town of Stanley, is also near the Nashwaak River and its protected natural area.
This mine comes with one of the world's largest tailings ponds that will be located in the headwaters of the Nashwaak River system.
And that doesn't sit well with conservationists, considering BC's tailings pond disaster in 2014 at the Mount Polley mine.
There are plenty of examples in Canada where these types of projects fail big, and the local communities are the ones that are really left dealing with the repercussions.
First Nations have also expressed opposition over the years, at one time even protesting at the site. Thursday, one Mi'kmaq chief said he needs time to digest the news.
The Wolastoq Way chiefs will insist that all proper processes are put in place, and that, of course, that we ensure that the Wolastoq Way rights are respected.
Our message to Susan Holt and to Prime Minister Carney is that they need to put this on pause and sit down and talk with us.
New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt says the province is talking to First Nations. Her government just gave Northcliffe 5 more years to meet outstanding environmental conditions from an assessment done a decade ago. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Health officials in Edmonton have declared an outbreak of tuberculosis. 2 people are confirmed to have the same strain. There have now been 12 cases of TB this year linked to Edmonton's unhoused community. Health officials say that represents a significant increase over recent years. Well, speed enforcement cameras across Ontario stopped issuing tickets today. The provincial government banned the cameras, which Premier Doug Ford calls a cash grab. That decision is sparking fierce criticism and warnings that the move will undermine road safety and cut funding for key programs. Matthew Bingley reports.
For the last 5 years, if you drove too fast by one of these, you could expect a ticket in the mail until a ban on automated speed enforcement cameras came into effect at midnight.
I hate to say this, but probably someone is going to get killed.
Toronto's enforcement program worked so well, cameras were increased, each time getting a stamp of approval from the province. They were targeted by vandals dozens of times, and eventually complaints caught up to the Premier.
This is nothing but a tax grab. Speed cameras do not slow people down.
Local governments were using ticket revenue to pay bills, but Ford's claim they didn't work is false. Sick Kids Hospital finding they reduced speeding by 45%, which is why a lot of parents want them back.
We are not going to give up, because when the safety of our children is at stake, we can be just as stubborn as him.
Ontario now plans to use taxpayer money to help municipalities pay for more signage, roundabouts, and speed humps, which it says will be more effective. But Toronto's mayor says that money won't cover the measures the fines we're paying for.
You're talking about 911 crossing guards and 18 police officers. That funding is now gone as of today.
Planners say it will cost more than $7 million to redesign Parkside Drive, where a couple was killed in 2021 by a driver going 50 kilometers over the limit. And locals aren't convinced the Ford government's changes will do much to help.
The speed camera was the only safety this street had, and now that's being taken away, and it leaves the street with absolutely nothing.
While some municipalities are repurposing their cameras, Toronto has already begun removing theirs. And the mayor says fighting the legislation in court would only be a waste of more money. Matthew Bingley, Global News, Toronto.
Well, after months of bad economic news in the trade spat with the United States, Canada was just handed a tiny and tasty victory. The American company behind Sourpuss liqueur is shifting production from Minnesota to Montreal after the bitter dispute caused a major part of their business to run dry. Dan Spector explains.
It's a drink that will spark possibly blurry memories in many Canadians. The sweet and sour flavor of Sourpuss liqueur. It was a staple at countless bars from the late 90s until this past March. And the vision that was planted. Amid Donald Trump's trade war, several provinces stopped selling American booze. CEO Andy England was hit with an existential crisis.
Well, it was not good, that's for sure.
He runs the Minnesota-based Phillips Distilling Company, the maker of Sourpuss. England says in 2024 they sold about $23 million worth of the beverage here. For some reason, barely any is sold in the U.S., and all that revenue was about to come to an abrupt and bitter end.
The vast majority, about 98%, is sold in Canada. And so, you know, in many ways, we think of it as being Canadian brand, and so all the more reason we should produce it in Canada.
After months of planning, Phillips Distilling has just signed a 5-year deal to move Sourpuss production to a plant in Montreal.
The situation has clearly upset Canadians, and the provinces clearly want to buy liquor that's made in Canada. Message received and understood. We've moved to Canada and are proud of it.
It's a small but symbolically important victory.
That's what they could do.
Last month, Ontario Premier Doug Ford ripped Crown Royal Whiskey for closing a facility in Ontario. The Canadian car industry has been moving jobs south, so this trade expert says we'll take the wins where we can get them.
Tiny victory, but symbolically important for Montreal, for Quebec, for Canada.
Andy England is now anxiously waiting for provincial liquor boards to put the red stuff back on their shelves. Quebec's SAQ did not respond to a request for comment. The LCBO says it's having active discussions with the supplier. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
Preparing for another winter at war. Coming up, Russia targets Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The U.S. Attorney General has just appointed a federal prosecutor to investigate ties between sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and several prominent Democrats. It comes just hours after President Trump posted this on Truth Social, demanding Pam Bondi and the FBI investigate former President Bill Clinton, among others whose names appeared in documents released this week. Trump himself was also named in an email from Epstein, which suggested that Trump knew about the abuse of underage girls. Trump has denied those allegations. Russia launched a major missile and drone attack on Ukraine's capital today, the largest in nearly 3 weeks. At least 6 people were killed. Odessa and Kharkiv were also targeted as Russia ramps up its assaults on homes and energy facilities ahead of the winter. But as Jackson Prosko reports, Ukraine is also hitting back.
Explosions rumbled across the night sky in Kyiv as intense Russian bombardment struck at the heart of the Ukrainian capital. Ukrainian air defenses were sometimes successful, sometimes not. This apartment building was shattered by a Russian missile. This woman says she and her son survived by jumping out of a window. It's impossible to stop the Russian terror, she says. I don't know why. By light of day, rescuers could be seen pulling bodies from the rubble. Putin always says they are only targeting military sites. It's a lie, said Kyiv's mayor. As winter approaches, Russia has ramped up strikes on civilian infrastructure, targeting energy plants, leaving Ukrainians to suffer in the cold and dark.
Attacks against civilians and civilian infrastructure violate international humanitarian law. They are unacceptable wherever they occur and must end immediately.
Repairs at bombed-out power plants have become an endless task for technicians, but Ukraine is not willing to let it happen without a fight. Increasingly, its domestically produced long-range missiles are turning the tables, carrying out precision strikes on Russian oil facilities. This one disabled Russia's second-largest export hub. The Kremlin has shown no sign it's serious about peace, saying it's still willing to talk to the U.S. if needed, after American officials said there needs to be a concrete result toward ending the war before any negotiations. And so Ukraine is left to weather the onslaught, facing the prospect of a cold and bloody winter ahead. Jackson Prosko, Global News, Washington.
Still ahead, a great escape caught on tape. The seals fight for survival against a pod of hungry killer whales. King Charles marking his 77th birthday. He celebrated with Queen Camilla at a reception in Wales. His birthday cake was a replica of the 200-year-old castle that hosted the event. And proving he's still young at heart, the king also hopped aboard a train to open a new metro depot in Wales. Buckingham Palace released this new official photograph of the monarch. A wildlife photographer captured a wild video off the coast of Seattle where a pod of orcas was hunting a seal. Take a look at this.
The seal's right here. Oh my God.
The photographer was watching the orcas when she spotted the seal trying to escape. It made a beeline for the boat and then clambered aboard.
He is on our boat. You're good, just stay, buddy.
But the orcas would not give up. The pod of at least 8 killer whales teamed up to rock the boat. The seal slid off but managed to climb back on.
I'm definitely team orca all day, every day. But once that seal was on the boat, I kind of turned team seal.
In the end, Team Seal was victorious. After about 15 minutes, the orcas finally swam away. Once they were safely out of sight, the seal hitched a ride out of the area, finally hopping off closer to shore.
All right, bye, buddy.
Time to party on the prairies. Coming up, Winnipeg rolls out the welcome mat ahead of the Grey Cup. Welcome back. It's been a milestone day for Montreal tennis star Felix Auger-Aliassime. The 25-year-old won a big match to propel him to number 5 in the world rankings. It's only the second time a Canadian man has cracked the top 5 after Milos Raonic in 2016. And the stage is set for Sunday's Grey Cup match between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and Montreal Alouettes. Football fans from across this country and even south of the border are now descending on Winnipeg. And as Melissa Ridgen reports, the party is just getting started.
Enthusiasm is everywhere you look, with everyone and their horse descending on Winnipeg for the 112th Grey Cup.
Hello, Tuffy. Welcome back to the holiday.
The Calgary Stampeders horse Tough Enough made his traditional hotel lobby visit, while fans touched down at the Winnipeg airport. Those in Ryder Green not used to such a warm welcome from anyone in Bomber Blue. Even though the host city did not make it to the final, the club and its fans are ready to party like they did.
Because our fans are so great, you know, this is another Bomber game day, just elevated the Grey Cup with an amazing halftime show. So, you know, we're used to sold out stadiums, so we're excited to host everybody.
Sunday's game will be the 15th straight sellout at Princess Auto Stadium. Machine Gun Kelly will entertain at halftime.
80% of the stadium will be full of, you know, Bomber fans, and the rest will be great CFL fans that enjoy coming to the Grey Cup Festival and the 112th Grey Cup.
We come to every Grey Cup, and you know what? It's so much fun. And we love this as in the football because all the kids, they put smiles on their faces. We have our pictures taken with everybody. We walk down the street promoting it. And that's what Grey Cup is about. It's community and fun.
This fan came from Detroit. He's not cheering for either team, but for Canada.
It doesn't matter whether you're from Saskatchewan or Edmonton or Ottawa, where I used to live. You know, everybody loves everybody, and they come to have a party.
And party they will, with tailgate festivities starting Sunday morning ahead of kickoff at 6 p.m. Eastern. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
And that is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Your Canada is going global this week. We're showcasing pictures of Canadian pride we've received from all over the world. And tonight we're showing this volcano crater near Selfoss, Iceland, a house in Santa Barbara, Philippines, and a pier in Belize. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Have a great night.